specific press conference with my dear friend and the County Prosecutor of Genesee, David Layton. My name is Chris Swanson, Sheriff of Genesee County. We come to you to bring a specific case that was meant to disrupt a historic event right here where you're standing. For months and months, this office has worked with the Attorney General's office to host an expungement fair. And it was a state law that was passed in April of this year that allows people with certain convictions to have their records expunged. People that have had convictions for years and years that have held them back, that have caused them to put a pause on volunteering, but yet that day was a day of celebration. It was meant for a day to set the standard of what an expungement fair was to look like. And the months and months and months of planning and scheduling, it all happened on June 2nd, 2021, right here on the front lawn. We knew we wanted to celebrate it, but with not just our local friends and leaders, but also open it up to higher dignitaries. So we had with us that day the Governor, Lieutenant Governor, the Attorney General, the Solicitor General, the Secretary of State, the Assistant Secretary of State, 3 Supreme Court Justices, our own Congressman Kildee, myself, Prosecutor Layton, multiple and very invested local leaders from churches and other groups to witness this historic event. We opened up the doors at 9 o'clock. The line was around the building. We had 718 people register through the Attorney General's office to get their records expunged. And come to find out, when you look back, there were 1,443 people that showed up that day. 1,400. We knew that no matter what was going to happen, we had a plan. The night before, you saw our media friends cover the fire that was in one of our events that triggered an entire response from the Office of Sheriff and the staff, and it flooded our whole front office. That didn't stop us. All the ins and outs of putting a mass event together, even when little things happened, we just kept going and going. We had plans on plans on plans. And after we were there to witness people's lives being restored and dignity given back and second chances, and lines everywhere with kids, elderly, special needs and wheelchairs were watching this happen, and they were celebrating with us. One particular little girl, beautiful. And while ever this was happening and we were making sure that the plans of what we were doing were all done professional and efficient, a call came in to 911. You better have all the police at the Genesee County Jailhouse. There's going to be a bomb threat at 4 p.m., Saginaw Street, Genesee County Jail. This call came in at 2:26 p.m. The last line of the call is the most stunning. Be prepared. On a day where we are celebrating the return of people's lives, this disruption came in. But what law enforcement does and does well and does best, we went into our contingency plan. We immediately dispatched it out. We were assisted by the Michigan State Police, who I give great credit. Thank you for Post 35 sending over their own explosive dogs. Our explosive dogs that had already done the sweep in the morning came back. We enlisted the support services of our local FBI. I give great thanks to that Safe Streets Task Force and the intelligence of our local office to start backtracking where this came from. We locked down this place. The Attorney General was right there with me in my office, the Solicitor General. By that time, the Governor had gone, the Secretary of State had gone, the Justices were still here. But whoever called this in had no idea. All they knew was there was a lot of people here, a lot of special people. And this disruption, one thing after another, we do risk assessment to determine, do we shut it down? We let people go? Do we escort out? So these are decisions, and I'm not going to give the weeds on them, but let me just say it involved a lot of bright minds. But I'm happy to say during the whole process, the Attorney General and her staff and all her dignitaries, they had faith in law enforcement. So we started a hard perimeter. We locked down Saginaw Street, locked down Court Street, around the building. We had the drone back up. We swept the bags. We swept all the people in line. We kept the music going. We made sure that the people here were safe, and that's what happened. And once that was done, we waited. It was determined by all law enforcement professionals, and ultimately it was my decision to stay the course. And at 9:30 that night, we all packed up. Nobody was injured. There was no bomb. It was simply a threat, a domestic threat. So we went on an investigative marathon. And I give great credit to not only the state police, the FBI, but to the Office of Sheriff, the detectives that have worked nonstop since the 2nd of June to find the suspect who called in this threat at 2:26, and we found him. There was a felony warrant that was already in lien for this individual for burglary. And we knocked down every lead we could. Thanks to the help of the prosecutor and his staff, we wrote nearly a half a dozen search warrants. And on the 10th of June, this suspect walked into this jail and turned himself in. Before I turn over to the prosecutor for the prosecution side, I want you to see what we were looking at. This is an aerial view and a side view of what happened, what was taking place on that day. And on that day, people stood in line, not knowing what was going on around, but I can assure you this, like law enforcement around the nation, we protect when no one sees. You had people in line. We had a kid zone here. We had people from all over the county, Genesee County. We had our fingerprint station here. But what you also don't see is what was happening around. And we kept the people safe. Once we had the suspect, continued to work with Prosecutor Layton, we turned the investigation over. And before I reveal the suspect in this case, who's lodged in jail right now, I'd like to let the prosecutor determine, give you an example of what happens on his side when we work together.
So on the Expungement Fair, which was Wednesday, June 2nd, the sheriff's hosting it right here where we are now. And as you've heard, in attendance were a number of dignitaries. And the sheriff has mentioned those folks who were here. Around 2:30, the phone call comes in for a bomb threat that's supposed to happen at 4 o'clock that afternoon. With the help of the FBI, Michigan State Police, led by the sheriff, we were able to identify the suspect as Cesar Terrell Brown. As it turns out, Mr. Brown had a felony warrant for breaking and entering through the 67th District Court. Mr. Brown was receiving pressure from his family to turn himself in. Mr. Brown was very nervous about turning himself in and frankly didn't want to go to jail. So he decided to call in the bomb threat because he believed that bomb threat would close down the jail, and then he would not be in a position to have to succumb to the pressures from his own family and turn himself in. So he called in that bomb threat thinking that would make all things go away. Well, the investigation has revealed, and we believe, that Mr. Brown actually watched a Facebook live broadcast of the Expungement Fair and was very aware of what was going on here. In addition, if he watched it, he had to have known, we believe, that the dignitaries were present. The governor, the attorney general, the secretary of state, the sheriff, and yours truly. So we believe he had that knowledge. Based on that, I charged him with 2 counts. I charged him with the first count, false report or threat of terrorism. The language of the warrant reads that he did knowingly make a false report of an act of terrorism and did communicate the false report to another person. That is a felony crime punishable by up to 20 years in state prison. Count 2 was using a computer to commit a crime of a maximum of 20 years or more, and that separate crime is also a 20-year maximum felony crime for which he can go to prison for up to 20 years. Now, he is facing 2 serious felony crimes, and as happens in our county, if you think you're going to get away with it, you are not. We do not look favorably upon terrorism threats. We do not look favorably upon bomb threats. We do not look favorably upon threats called into public schools, as we have shown over this past number of years. So this gentleman is in some hot water. He is innocent until proven guilty, but I thank the sheriff, I thank his staff and all the detectives who worked so hard on the case, and I am confident that we will be able to find justice for the community and for Genesee County.
And I just want to add that when things like this happen and the social media picked up what was going on during this time, that there was a bomb threat, there's a lot of moving parts. But what we want to assure people is the protection of innocent bystanders and victims is our utmost priority. So to imagine whatever you were doing on the 2nd of June, till this day, we've been working the case. As the prosecutor alluded to, you can't put fear and terror into innocent people without being held accountable. So we wanted to bring this message to you separate from all the other things that we do to let you know that local law enforcement, state police, sheriff's office, FBI work together to bring safety to that day and the people that showed up here. And any other event that we have on this lawn or in this county, we will make sure that we do all that we can to protect it. And if anybody tries to disrupt that, we will hold them accountable. So great thanks go out to the prosecutor, for your staff. During the process, we were writing search warrants by the hour to track where this individual was through social media, through different phone numbers and different other sources we use. And it was a seamless process, albeit taken 8 days. It worked out. Thank you.